Israel was suffering. For 7 long years, the Midianites had oppressed them, destroying crops, stealing livestock, and forcing the people to hide in caves and mountains. Fear and despair gripped the land. In the quiet of the night, Gideon was secretly threshing wheat in a winepress, hiding from the enemy. He was a simple man, feeling weak and overlooked, wondering how he could make a difference. Then a voice spoke, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Gideon looked up, startled. Before him stood an angel of the Lord. "Sir," Gideon whispered, "if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened?" The angel assured him that God had a plan. Gideon would lead Israel against Midian, but Gideon doubted. "How can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest and I am the least in my family." God encouraged him, "I will be with you. You will strike down Midian as easily as one blows down a stream of water." Still unsure, Gideon asked for a sign. He placed a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. First, he asked that dew fall only on the fleece and the ground remain dry. In the morning, it was exactly as he requested. Then he asked for the opposite, to keep the fleece dry while the ground was wet, and the Lord granted it. Gideon's faith grew. Now strengthened, Gideon gathered the Israelites to fight. 32,000 men answered the call. But the Lord said, "The army is too large. I will deliver Midian into your hands. But Israel must know that victory comes from me, not their own strength." Through God's guidance, Gideon's army was reduced. First, 22,000 were sent home because they were afraid. Then God instructed him to further reduce the number at the water. Those who lapped the water with their tongues were kept, and the rest sent away. Only 300 men remained. Though small in number, the army was mighty in faith. God's plan was clear. Israel would win by his power alone, and all would know that the Lord had delivered them. Gideon looked over the 300 men, torches hidden in jars, trumpets ready, hearts trembling yet trusting God. This was the beginning of the miracle that would free Israel. As night fell over the Midianite camp, Gideon's 300 men moved silently. Torches hidden in clay jars glimmered like tiny stars, and the sound of trumpets was ready to pierce the darkness. Gideon whispered a prayer, "Lord, let your power be seen. Let not our strength, but your might, bring victory tonight." The men surrounded the enemy city in 3 groups, each positioned strategically. Gideon held the signal for the attack. With a single shout, the jars shattered, the torches blazed, and the trumpets sounded with deafening force. Panic erupted. The Midianites, disoriented and terrified, turned on one another in confusion. Their camp became chaos, as though the Lord himself had thrown them into a whirlwind. Soldiers fled in every direction, unable to recognize friend from foe. Gideon's army pursued the fleeing Midianites, striking down those who resisted. The leaders of Midian, Oreb and Zeb, were captured and defeated, their power broken. God's plan was clear. It was not Gideon's skill, nor the army's strength, but his presence that brought victory. When the battle was over, the Israelites had achieved the impossible. The small army of 300 had conquered the mighty Midianites. Israel celebrated, but Gideon reminded the people, this victory was God's alone. It was a lesson in faith, obedience, and dependence on the Lord. With the Midianites defeated, peace returned to Israel. The land, once oppressed and fearful, knew God's deliverance. Gideon's courage and trust had changed the course of history. The Lord's power had been revealed, and Israel would remember this day for generations. With the Midianites defeated and their leaders fallen, Gideon returned to Israel, his heart full of awe for the Lord's power. The people hailed him as a hero, asking him to rule over them as king. But Gideon refused, humbly replying, "I will not rule over you, nor will my son. The Lord shall rule over you." Gideon knew that victories were not his own. The strength and courage that had conquered Midian had come from God alone. Every sword raised, every enemy defeated had been guided by the hand of the Almighty. To remind Israel of God's faithfulness, Gideon made an ephod, a sacred garment. It stood as a memorial of the Lord's deliverance, a reminder that God had fought for his people, and that their obedience and trust were the source of every victory. During Gideon's lifetime, the land enjoyed peace for 40 years. The people no longer feared the Midianites. Farmers could harvest their crops, families could live without hiding, and Israel learned to trust in God's provision and protection. Yet, even as peace settled, Gideon's story reminded the Israelites, faith, humility, and obedience bring lasting victory. A nation can only flourish when it honors God above all else, and Gideon's legacy would live on as a testament to courage through trust in the Lord. Years passed and Gideon grew older. Israel thrived under the peace God had given them, but Gideon knew that true strength came not from armies or walls, but from obedience to the Lord. He gathered the leaders of Israel one last time and reminded them, "Remember the Lord who has delivered you. Do not turn to the gods of the nations around you. Do not forget what he has done." Even as the people praised his victories, Gideon gave all glory to God. He refused to be king, teaching Israel that no man, no matter how brave, should take the place of the Lord in their hearts. The ephod he had made remained a visible reminder of God's faithfulness, a sign that Israel's victories came through trust, not power. Gideon's life became a story for future generations, a story of courage, humility, and reliance on God. The people learned that God uses the weak to shame the strong, the few to confound the many, and the faithful to bring deliverance. When Gideon passed away, the Israelites mourned. His leadership had brought freedom, peace, and the knowledge of God's power. Yet the memory of his humility and faith remained, a guiding light for those who would follow. The story of Gideon reminds Israel and all of us that God's strength is made perfect in weakness, that obedience leads to victory, and that true legacy is built on faithfulness, not fame.